This is the Urban Jellicle Podcast.
Hello, welcome to Urban Jellicle. My name is Mike Kelly. Thanks for listening to us. We're excited to introduce one of our church planting residents and a longtime friend, Joshua Tsavatewa. Joshua Tsavatewa has been on staff at Sacred Road and White Swan on the Yakima Indian Reservation for about 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And for the last year or so, he's been part of our church planting residency program. The incredible work there, which I hope you'll check out at Sacred Road Ministries, also includes Hope Fellowship, which is a church plant that we're going to hear about today. But I want to say hi to Joshua and welcome him. Thanks for being here, Joshua.
Hey, Mike. It's good to be here.
Thought we'd start with a little bit of your story and how you ended up out in the West with us, in the Northwest.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I was born in Indiana. My family is from Arizona. My dad's side is from Indiana. But grew up in North Carolina, Georgia, did college in Georgia. My family is Hopi. My grandmother was born and raised on the Hopi Reservation in northern Arizona. And I grew up, like I said, North Carolina, Georgia. And when I was in college, I got connected with the PCA. And my senior year, we did there's a lot I guess I could go into, but we did a mission trip to Biloxi to help with Hurricane Katrina relief work, and I got interested in mercy ministry type work. And then I went to seminary, and when I was in seminary, I came across Sacred Road on the PCA website looking for mercy ministry mission opportunities, and applied, came out as an intern, and fell in love with the Granberries and the staff there and the work and the kids, and joined 2010. Yeah.
So at the time, you were thinking about getting graduate degree, a PhD in history. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was my plan. Had been to when I went to seminary was to do a MA in theological studies with the goal of going to do a PhD in history with a focus on theological studies, intellectual history at that time. And
that changed. You met some kids.
Yeah, it changed.
In White Swan.
Yeah.
Was that a hard decision, or did it just seem natural? Like, wow, I need to do this, or?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't that hard. I mean, when I went, I really felt like I was supposed to be there, and I think I guess it's been confirmed. And yeah, there are times when I think, well, I could have done something else, but I still like history. But yeah.
So, what is your work before you started in our residency program?
Yeah.
Tell us, and you're still doing a lot of that. Tell us what your role historically has been at White Swan with Sacred Road.
Well, I started off as a children's ministry director, and I did that for a number of years. And at Sacred Road, a lot of us wear different hats. So, driving for youth group and church and all that kind of stuff. And so then I started, I can't remember now what year, but I got licensed, I think in 5-6 years ago. It took me a while to get ordained. And
licensure is part of the pathway to ordination in our denomination. So
yeah, I did that, and I help with youth ministry, and now I'm the middle school director, and I do a good bit of preaching, and then I guess I do a good bit of pastoring in the community with different children and teenagers, adults that are part of our church.
It's been very challenging all over the world with COVID in 2019 and still, but there are specific and very acute challenges on the reservation. Tell us a little bit about what this year has been like, because I know it's been extremely difficult on families and young children and the ministry partners we have out there.
Yeah, it's been hard to do a lot. We can't do our normal ministry. We do a lot of outreach work. Can't do much of that right now. And it's been difficult. The statistics are difficult and hard to always get, but a lot of Native communities have been hit really hard by the virus. And there's a lot of multi-generational homes, a lot of people with pre-existing conditions.
Sure.
So there's been a lot of deaths in the community, and the tribe and most tribes have been very cautious and careful because of historical issues with viruses and diseases. So it's put a lot of kind of clamps on what we've been able to do. But we've still been doing various outreach and going to people's homes and doing stuff at the outside and that sort of thing.
So hopefully we can see the end from here.
Yeah.
Are you encouraged, defeated, a little bit of both? Tell us how the team's feeling there on the reservation.
A little bit of both. I think all of us right now are kind of starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you could say. Most of our staff got the first vaccine shot last week, actually, which was pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah, because we we have a connection with the tribe, and because we do so much work with kids, they wanted us to get shots so we can start doing more activities with kids.
Good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Now, about a year ago, I think it was, or maybe almost a year ago, you entered into our church planting residency program.
Yeah.
With a view towards taking over the role as lead pastor in Hope Fellowship.
Right.
We're really excited to be part of that and very hopeful about your ongoing ministry there. Tell us about Hope Fellowship. What's it like? Let's go back pre-COVID on a Sunday morning. Let's start on Sundays because it does a lot during the week too. But what's Sunday like pre-COVID at Hope Fellowship?
Yeah, our church is different. You could say weird, but it's very different. A typical Sunday morning, we send out a big bus and 3 vans to pick up kids. And we pick up kids, adults, teenagers. And typically on Sunday, we have 50 to 60 children that are from White Swan, and we have usually 15 or 20 young people, teenagers, and then usually around 20, 25 adults from the community. So we've different times we've calculated the average age of our congregation is generally like 10 or 12 years old because we got a lot of little ones. And most of our kids that are coming, they're coming either with a sibling or maybe a teenager sibling, but they're not usually coming with their parents. They're coming kind of apart from that. We had a team member several years ago that said, typically when you go to churches across the country, you go and there are children there and it's because their family took them to church. Okay. And they said Sacred Road's a little bit different because the kids are there because the church is their family. And we've often tried to make family ministry a big goal of the church, and it's kind of a big buzzword, for us. But I think you can kind of see it too with a lot of the kids that come and are part of our church. We want to love them like family, treat them like family. And for a lot of them, church is one of the few safe places they have, and it's a place where they feel loved and cared for, and they feel like family there. So,
and that's wonderful. That's wonderful and encouraging to hear, and it's a testimony to really what the church is supposed to be like everywhere all the time. So they come, they get picked up, then the bus brings them to the wonderful facility God's provided for you guys on the reservation. Yeah. And then what happens? There's a service. Is there anything else that happens that day?
Yeah, I forgot. I just took off. So when they arrive, we the teenagers usually sit together, and then we'll split the kids up into groups that are color coordinated, red, blue, orange, green, purple. And they'll be like the little girls, little boys, older girls, preschool kids. And we have, sometimes it's a staff member. We have several young adults from the community and teenagers from the community that will be kind of the adoptive parent for 3 or 4 hours for the kids. So they'll, like Connie's one of our girls, and she'll run the purple group, and she has 7 to 10 little girls, and she's in charge of them, and she sits with them during church and helps them to sing and follow along the bulletin and stand up, sit down, get them to the bathroom.
She's the purple team.
Yeah.
I think I've met Connie. She's been part of the community for some time, right?
Yeah. She's with the Granberries.
Was she one of those little kids in that service at one time?
Yeah, when I was an intern in 2009, she was one of the kids that was at Kids Club.
I've met Connie. She's pretty sharp.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
What would you say you see God doing in the Sacred Road ministry and the church? Like, what are some encouraging reports you have that strengthen you in your faith? Yeah,
well, one that happened this week is there's a young man who came to church this Sunday and asked to get baptized.
Great.
And he hasn't been a part of church youth group for 7 or 8 years. And he came to youth group, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And he was just kind of there. He wasn't like a leader. He wasn't one who was, we invested in him, but he never really kind of globbed on, and he kind of drifted away and was doing his own thing. He had a near-death experience with drugs in January, and he also had a series of visions or dreams that were kind of connected to it, and he'd been kind of struggling through, what does all this mean, and what do I do? And I saw him at the trading post last week, and he came up to me and said, "You guys still doing church?" And I thought at first he was coming to ask for money, and so I was kind of like, had my guard up a little bit, and I was like, "Oh yeah, 10:30 on Sunday," and he said, "Okay," and I was like, "I'll never see him," but he came this Sunday, and he talked probably for about an hour with Chuck and I, and just was talking about what happened to him and where he's trying to go and how he's, and he prayed with Chuck to, receive Christ, and we're going to kind of work through with him about what that means and what baptism is.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What's his name? First name?
His name's Dominic.
Dominic, that's great.
Yeah.
It's also a wonderful picture of the kind of work that we're doing in the Northwest here in urban settings, more traditional Presbyterian settings.
Yeah.
It just takes a long time.
Yeah.
And you guys have had to be there a long time to become fabric of the community and have that kind of credibility. But if you're just in and out for a mission trip, that kid gets missed.
Yeah.
But when you're there 8 years later, he's got a place to go back to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that drew me in with Sacred Road in 2009 when I was an intern was that commitment to being there long term. And some of these kids we're going to minister to and do a Jesus story with them, and we may not see them again for 10 years, and hopefully they'll come back, Yeah.
So that's the good stuff. What's the hard stuff for you when you're there ministering for the long haul? Because there's a lot of space in between moments like you get with Dominic, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of different hard things. I think one of the hardest things is there can be a real emotional toll from working with the kids, and you interact with a kid and you see there's great beauty and potential, and they're a wonderful kid, but then you also as you get closer to people, you find out more of their story, and you see some of the heartache and the problems at home, and some of them are problems you can't deal with, and there's nothing you can do, and there are other problems you could maybe pursue a legal avenue, call the police, call CPS. But then oftentimes that doesn't seem to work out either. So it can be really frustrating and heartbreaking, and it's grieving for a kid that is being chewed up and spit out by the system or their own family, and there's very little you can do about it. That's rough.
So how do you process that internally? How do you call out to God or apply the gospel? What's that look like? Because that's tough to do in any setting. Mm-hmm. When the needs are that acute and obvious, it's got to be a burden for you.
Yeah. Well, I've learned that just trying to suck it up and keep chugging is not the best way to go about that.
I imagine
trying to just grit through it. I got this. I think one of the best things, and a thing I really appreciate about Sacred Road, is the staff we have. We have, I don't know how many. We've got a lot of staff right now. We got full-time and part-time staff, and the Granberries have been there for a really long time, 18 years now, almost now. And it helps to have experience, and, if this is going on right now and I can share about it, and then they can say, well, that happened with me 10 years ago or 4 years ago, and people to commiserate with and lean on during those times. I find for me, singing is probably one of the things I do the most. So I sing a lot, and
I will make you sing for us now.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. So you're transitioning. You've always been involved with Hope Fellowship from the beginning. You've had youth responsibilities. You preach about half time now. Is that right?
Yeah, Chris and I are doing about half and half right now.
Okay, so Chris Granberry and Mary Granberry are the founders of Sacred Road Ministry. They've been there 18 years. And Chris is the lead pastor in a formal fashion, and a lot in the functional ways too at Hope Fellowship. But the plan is for that to change. So tell us a little bit about what you see during that transition, what we're hoping for over the next, say, 12 to 18 months, and why you're excited about having that role, which is similar, but it's going to be different in significant ways as well.
Yeah. The part of me is feeling like I don't know what that looks like, and I'm completely lost, and I'm in a mist. But
sure.
But there are parts that we've talked about, and preaching more regularly, and we'll be at the point in a few years where I'm preaching most of the time or all the time. Some of the pastoring in the community has some, a lot of it's very relational, and so then there are relationships Chris has that I don't have. Mm-hmm. So maybe kind of working through what that looks like. And then something I'm less confident in, I guess, in a way, is the leadership. Taking the lead. I'm in charge of this church and this group of people, and what does that look like? And of course, talking through that. What does that mean, and how are we going to pull that off?
Well, that's a difficult transition for any rising, growing leader to make.
Yeah.
But there's a whole community, the presbytery, the board at Sacred Road, and of course the staff there. We're confident in your ability to make those transition and grow in those ways. It'll be difficult, but we are hopeful, and we want you, of course, to be as well.
Yeah.
So we're hoping in the long term, this won't be the only new church in the reservations in the Northwest.
Right.
And I know you guys have thought a lot about that. Tell us a little bit about the need beyond the Yakima Nation and beyond the Yakima Reservation, or
Sure.
tell us a little bit about what you are thinking of.
Yeah, this last Christmas, we did Operation Christmas Child and partnered with Samaritan's Purse Ministry, and we distributed about 2,000 shoeboxes to, off the top of my head, I think it was 23 communities or 23 organizations and 9 different reservations here in the Northwest.
Okay. Wow.
And several of us went and traveled to different communities. And so, for example, in Lapwai, Idaho, we connected with 4 broadly evangelical churches there. And there are several other churches in the community. But all 4 of those churches are pretty running on, they've run out of fumes. They're coasting now. You know, the churches are really weak and struggling, and very few people, very few resources. And so part of my transitioning into being the pastor is Chris would be freed up to do kind of more connecting, networking with other reservations, and hopefully getting similar ministries going in other areas. There's an elder from White Swan who says, whenever you look at socioeconomic indicators in the United States, if it's bad for you, Native Americans are at the bottom, and if it's good, it's the opposite. Yeah. If it's good for you, Native Americans are at the bottom, and it's bad for you, Native Americans are at the top. So poverty, suicide, homelessness, early deaths, violent deaths, violence against women, all those sort of things, Natives have real struggles. And White Swan is one of those communities that has a lot of that, and we have a group that's hopefully going to be going to Warm Springs within the next calendar year, and they're going to be doing a lot of similar ministry that we're doing. Okay. But there's a real need there for a healthy church. And
when you said elder, you meant a tribal elder, not a Presbyterian elder,
not a PCA elder. Yes, a tribal elder. Yeah.
So we need leaders for that.
Yeah.
As you know, you're part of our leadership development program. Yeah. That's a big part of what the network will focus on for the indefinite future. We want to help raise up leaders. So your journey into ministry falls across pathways that are familiar to the Presbyterian world, and that's great. What do you think the more accessible pathway might look like for leaders who are Native Americans who can do ministry like you in that setting? So we want to talk a little bit about that. But you mentioned earlier in some of our pre-conversations that there's some young leaders, some young people that you kind of wonder about their leadership capacity, and maybe they have some gifts. And tell me a little bit about what you see in them, and then we'll talk about how we're not going to plan their life, but how we might help them on a pathway with stepping stones.
Well, I think that when you talk about leadership and potential, that potential for leadership and individual potential, everyone has some potential for leadership in different capacities. One thing that I think is really tragic with a lot of Native communities is that there are some. I could again name some kids that have had huge potential and are smart and academically gifted and spiritually gifted and relationally gifted, but then because of their family circumstances and some of their own life choices, that some of that gets snuffed out. And again, it's kind of looking back over the last 11 years I've been there, seeing some of those kids and knowing that kid could have been a future pastor. He could have been a future elder, or she could have been a future leader in our church. But then things happened. So one of the buzzwords, holistic ministry, Sacred Road. We do a lot of that, but many of our kids are needing a place to stay or somewhere to live and someone to take them in. I'm not just like teenagers, but littler kids. And so there would be there is a huge need for foster homes. I talked to one of the foster organization there, the tribal foster group, and they had only certified one new family to do foster care in the year 2019. Wow. And they were saying they need more people, So there's that kind of thing.
So in terms of moving upstream to find young leaders, part of that in your setting is to create a holistic, healthy home family environment.
Yeah.
That puts them in a position to have some choices
Sure.
when they're older, right?
Yeah, and there's some kids too that are in healthy homes and doing okay, and we need to try to get them plugged in with church and connected. But there are a lot of kids that we've connected with that are just living in rough spots, and so we do things like have an after-school program and youth group and discipleship groups that meet every Thursday, and yet we do Young Life at the middle school and high school. So there are different ways to connect with the kids and try to get them plugged in and push them into leadership. And there was a pastor named Jeff Yellowow. I think he's Blackfeet, and he had talked once about whenever you're in front of the kids, it's a great opportunity to. He used the term prophesy. I think he was using it different than
I'll just let him use it.
He said,
let's not get all too
yeah, we're not going to break it down. Yes,
so that's good.
He said when you're in front of a group of kids, you can prophesy over them and say, one day you guys are going to be the future leaders, and one day you guys are going to be doing things here in this community, and kind of speaking over them that they're going to be doing great things and they can do great things,
sure.
And kind of casting a vision over them, and then also expecting it from them. So pushing them into leadership, having certain standards that they have to meet, and I think too there's a desire within each and every one of us to want to be needed and want to do something, and so kind of igniting that spark within within little kids and teenagers and pushing them towards that.
So that's a great word. Cast a vision, give them the idea that it's not ridiculous to think about those things in the Lord. So you fostered that, and now you've got an 18 or let's say an 18 or 19-year-old. What are some of the next pathways, stepping stones that might help them? Think of Connie, who's sort of followed a little bit of a pathway of like this, maybe a lot of it that way. What would the next stepping stone be for that 18-year-old who heard that prophecy, that vision? Yeah.
Living life with them, having meals on Saturday and playing games or watching basketball or a movie or that kind of thing. We have a number of young men and young women that are working part-time with us, and some of them are needing employment. Some of them would need a place to stay, which we already mentioned. But and potentially pushing them towards the college. I mean, that college seminary is kind of the traditional Presbyterian route. But there are other young folks that we're trying to connect with. There are a couple organizations in the county of Yakima that do housing. So we've tried to connect some of them into that, push some to Job Corps and get them into life skills, work skills.
So you build early relationship, and then there's opportunity to get on staff. So and build deeper relationships. So there's a saturation in relationship, and then an immersion in, hey, this is what it's like to do ministry on a weekly basis. Here's a project, interacting with folks. Then you mentioned in our tradition, which has got real strengths to it, but also real weaknesses. Then there's an 8-year pathway that costs a lot of money and is very disruptive. Is that sustainable? If we wanted to raise up 20, be part of supporting the Native American community of raising up 20 Native American leaders, we're going to do some of that, but is that the most effective way? Is that the best pathway to imagine, or are there other ways we could do that?
Some kids are interested in going to college and graduate school. A lot of kids aren't, and some kids they're needing to get a job at 15 and start making some money, make ends meet. Sacred Road has some economic development branches to it, so it's trying to get some kids plugged into that and start getting working. But there's a lot of different. There can be a lot of different paths, whether it's Third Mill or the Lamp direction to go, or you could do the old Princeton started out as like a log seminary. Log cabin seminary.
That's what I'm getting at. It's not about accommodating the standards. It's about because there's all those platforms. It's about adapting the structures. So that we're not expecting a certain set of structures to folks to need to conform to that. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do with our internship program and with our residency program as well. So when you think about a Native American pastor or a pastor in a Native American setting.
Yeah.
Describe the kind of gifts that person needs to have. I know it's a profoundly relational setting.
Yeah.
There's a preaching element to it.
Mm-hmm.
What would make, I guess I'm asking you, what would make you a good pastor then? No. I'm asking you, who are the kind of people you'd like to work with?
Sure.
What are some of the profiles and gifts that you would see in a 20-year-old and think, we need to come alongside them?
Yeah. Humility is a big one. Not just, whenever you're in a new situation, new job, there's a lot to learn. And so you can have theological, biblical training. Every reservation is a little different. Every community has different ticks and that sort of thing. So you have to kind of approach it knowing that there are going to be times when you get corrected and you get told you're doing that wrong. You need to stop, and you have to bow your head and say, okay,
Sure.
That's one. You need a good sense of humor. The kids and teenagers have a tendency to make nicknames for you, which sometimes is fun, sometimes it's not. And so you kind of have to learn to roll with that quickly. And if it's a parent that they've gotten you, then
They'll know,
and they'll get you. They'll keep getting you. But there's a give and take with that. And a strong sense of humor. Humility, I think too. Humility in relationships. You've got to be able to, know you don't know things, and then know that there are others that you're going to open up to them and say, I did this wrong. What do I need to do?
Sure.
I every once in a while bring out a craft I made when I was first doing children's ministry. There was like a 14-step donkey, and it was Beth Granberry, their second daughter, got really mad at me because she was like, the kids can never do this. This is too many steps, and this is the most complicated, terrible craft ever. And I had to take that and okay, I couldn't be like, I went to seminary and I learned,
Yeah, but I missed this. I missed the craft class at seminary.
Yeah, that's true.
But I could not do a 14-step craft.
No, and a 5-year-old kid right there, that has attention issues can't either. No.
It's interesting. You talked about relational character issues.
Yeah.
As the core.
Yeah,
and that's what I see. That's what I see in you. I see other gifts. You have a tenacity, and you're an effective speaker, and you can connect with people. But really, you are there to be with. That's really the core of what Sacred Road has been about for 18 years. And one of the reasons we're excited about, the future of your ministry there. So you have a few minutes. We're going to be closing off here. I want you to share with us how the folks that are watching and listening can pray for and also support Sacred Road and Hope Fellowship, and even you, if you can. And
Sure.
Then we'll thank you for your time.
Sure. Well, as a missions organization, we always need financial support for individuals and for different programs. People can come on short-term mission teams. We have different individuals that will collect backpacks and donate them in August. We give those out to kids. We do Christmas time. I mentioned the shoe boxes. We did Operation Christmas Child this last year, but we collect shoe boxes from individual churches and give them out
Sure.
as our own. So we do that every year, and it's a great way to connect and give a gift to a kid and share with them. We need people to be praying for us. That's a huge part of it. There is a lot of spiritual warfare and spiritual darkness, and we also can get discouraged and feel like we're lost. But there's a big need for prayer, a big need for people to be giving, and one of our I guess our byline tag word is come and see. We want people to come and White Swan's not too far from Seattle. They could come for a Sunday or a weekend and chop firewood, or like I said, a short-term team. But come and see the kids, and we really believe that if you come out there and you see a Sunday and interact with the kids, and losing basketball or octoball or
Get a bad nickname.
Yeah, get a bad nickname, play on the swings. You're more likely to care and to give and to pray. And we want people to be praying for these young leaders that are growing up. And I know that a lot of people have been praying for Connie over the years. And as we've been talking, there's a young man named Jyrone who's 20 who's worked with us for about a year and a half now.
Oh, good.
And he's full-time now. And a lot of people have been praying for him. He has a grandmother there on the res who's been praying for him for a long time too. And
that's cool.
It's one of my favorite stories about him.
Yeah, let's hear it.
When he was in 6th and 7th grade, he got sent home all the time from youth group because he was hyper and wouldn't listen. And he'd mouth off and be disrespectful and goof off. And he was in, they called it opportunity school in middle school, which is basically in-school suspension. And I went down and would volunteer a couple days a week to help him and 2 other guys that were in there and help with their academics, try to, and one time I got kind of mad at him. I was like, you guys got to get your junk together. And I used a bad word, which I shouldn't have, but Jaron still remembers that. He'll make fun of me every once in a while and be like, you remember when you said that? I'm like, yes, I did.
Yes, I did.
But probably like 4 or 5 years ago, we were having youth group, and he was sitting on the second row, and in the front row were a bunch of 6th and 7th graders, and they're kind of wild. And they were talking, acting up, goofing off. And so he reaches over and he taps him on the shoulder, and he's like, hey, you gotta be quiet. You gotta listen up. And so I just broke out laughing out loud while Chuck's doing the lesson. And everyone's like, why are you laughing? Quiet down, to me. But to imagine that Jaron as a 10th grader was correcting these little 6th graders and trying to get them to listen and pay attention. And now he helps with everything we're doing, and he's working with us full time. And I don't know where he's going to go or what he's going to be doing, but
he's already a leader.
Yeah, he is.
And he started as a disruptive 10-year-old, bored out of his mind, causing trouble. Yeah, and you just showed up. Yeah, we'll see what happens to him. Maybe he's one of those 10-year-olds that will be leading and playing at church. Maybe as an elder. There's a lot of things.
We're hoping he'll be leading. Yeah, he is a leader. Yeah,
that would be wonderful. Yeah, thanks so much, Joshua. It's really always encouraging to talk to you and hear from you. So. Thank you for listening and watching today. If you want to learn more about Sacred Road Ministries, we'll have a link at our podcast website at Evangelical. You can also just Google that and it'll get you there. Check out Evangelical. We've got blog posts and other podcasts, and you can also click over to the network website to learn about what we're doing. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Evangelical is a ministry of the Northwest Church Planting Network in Seattle, Washington. If you would like to be notified of future podcasts, please visit nwcpnetwork.com and click Podcasts.